We all know we should exercise, but what does exercise do for us mentally? What does it do for our mental health? I reached out to someone I interviewed a while ago, Sandra Steiner. She's a fitness professional and an author, and discussed with her about coming on the show to discuss how exercise impacts the brain, as well as encourage me to do some research as to how does it affect the brain when someone is using ketamine. What is the benefit of exercise for ketamine-assisted therapy? Here's my interview with Sandra Steiner. It's so nice to see you again, Sandra, and for you to be in our studio. How are you doing?
I am doing great and happy to be back. Thanks for having me again.
Yes, we did a podcast episode on another podcast about bipolar disorder. It was actually, I think, on World Bipolar Day, was it not?
It was, yes, March 30th.
And you're an author, and that was a lot of what we covered last time. Is A Sparkling Tornado is a book that you have out. But also one thing that we touched on that we can do here today is talk about your background as a fitness instructor. And I think you've been doing this for over 20 years now.
Yeah, 25 years. Yes.
Wow.
Still teaching classes, fitness classes.
And now the fitness classes that you were teaching is kind of morphed into, is it a webinar or workshop? It's called Move Your Mood.
Well, I have started to blend the aspect of mental health and how exercise can help and improve mental health. So, yeah, I've done a webinar, I've done a workshop on it, and I have another workshop, a live workshop coming up in July, end of July as well. So, trying to spread the word that I see in my participants, and I definitely see in myself that it's not just the physical aspect that I am exercising for, it's just as much the mental health aspect.
Does it help for depression?
Absolutely. It helps for depression. They've been shown that it actually boosts our neurotransmitters. So these would be things like serotonin. And you probably know that there is a class of antidepressants, SSRIs, and not sure if I'm going to get it right, but serotonin something reuptake inhibitors, trying to get more serotonin in the brain. But exercise does that as well. And same with dopamine, which is it's a feel-good hormone, endorphins, dopamine. And it also increases norepinephrine. And norepinephrine, if we think of it as a mild form of adrenaline, really, depression comes with a lot of fatigue and lethargy, right? So it can help give a little bit more energy and a little bit more focus, because norepinephrine is about getting our brain ready to focus on something.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the fight or flight, but in a good way.
What about sleep? Does it help sleep?
Absolutely. There's been a lot of stuff showing that it helps with sleep. I mean, if you think about it, if you're more relaxed, when do we not sleep? It's when we're stressed and thinking of a gazillion different things out there. But it's been shown to help with your circadian rhythm specifically. And that rhythm is what our natural sleep rhythm should be, generally from caveman days following night and darkness. If anybody has a teenager, knows a teenager, was a teenager, their circadian rhythm gets really messed up. But that's how it's supposed to be. I don't know why, but that's why they want to stay up until 2 and wake up at 11, and every parent gets upset at them. Right? But so their circadian rhythm is off. I don't think any amount of exercise could help that anyways for teenagers. And better sleep, better mood and emotion regulation.
I think I read somewhere, because I was preparing for this, and I've got a lot of notes, and being a science nerd, I have a lot of information. But one thing that I came across about exercise is that it can be beneficial late in the day, but not just before bed. So if I was to exercise in the evening, which I probably would have more time to do, how does that affect sleep? Or like, is there a period of time that you don't use any kind of exercise an hour before, or how does that work?
It's funny. This is an interesting question because That's what the science says. But I also, over the years, have had personal training clients when I used to do personal training, who I'd see 8:30 to 9:30 at night, and then they'd say they have the best sleep. I don't even really like to work out in the evenings. Twice a week, I have a cycling club, and it's from 6:30 to 8:30, and it's mountain biking, so it's adrenaline, and I have a hard time sleeping. I was saying this to one of the guys I was riding with, and he said, "Really? These are the best sleeps I have all week." So it must differ in different people, right? Even though it makes sense that you don't want to get wired up, but I've seen it the opposite. So I think it kind of goes like, well, what is the best type of exercise? Maybe what is the best time of day going to be different for every person.
Why biking? And apparently you have 5 different bikes. Like you're really into this.
I am really into it, and I like to justify by saying I do use them all. So why cycling? There's a few reasons, and again, this is for me a sport I found that really works for me, and different types work for me in different ways. If I used to do a lot of road riding. Because of traffic, I've recently sold that bike, and I do what's called gravel riding, slightly different bike, but you're on gravel roads.
Isn't that dangerous?
Well, now I'm on gravel roads, right? So I don't have the cars. So to me, it's way
I'm just thinking about the
less.
gravel itself. I mean, how do you get traction? Is it just the type of tires you have on it?
Yeah, it's a bike meant for gravel. So
Okay.
it's not like a mountain bike, it's not like a road bike. It's in between, and it's meant for gravel. It's actually quite good. But so I find when it was the road riding or the gravel, it's a constant pedaling. And it's almost like a moving meditation. That's what I found,
Hmm.
especially now that I'm off the roads. So from that, I get the time to think about things I need to think about. I get one movement after the other. That's it, one pedal after the other. And it's kind of an analogy for life. Whereas my mountain biking, and I do cross country, and I also do downhill where you take it on the chairlift and go downhill. So those are adrenaline, and those are fear, and those are constant accomplishments. Every 5 minutes, I'm accomplishing something. I got over that rock jump I didn't get over last time. I rolled those logs I didn't last time. So for me, it's a big confidence boost, and it's an adrenaline rush. And maybe that's why I'm not sleeping on those nights. I'm jacked up on adrenaline.
And in another podcast, or I think it was a webinar that you were doing, you were talking about your mental health bike. How different is that one?
That's a different bike again. So that's my e-bike. And I find it helps me in a few ways. When those days when I'm down and I know riding will make me feel better, I can hop on my e-bike, and I don't get all dressed in my biker clothes and my special shoes. Like I go out like a normal person on the bike out my door and just pedal for a bit, and it's not as challenging. So that definitely, it's just it's happy. It's all the joy of cycling without too much work. You still need to pedal, but it's my mental health bike. It makes me feel happy.
Let's talk about mental health more specifically, and I hope you don't mind personally. In your book, you talk a great deal about being diagnosed with bipolar disorder many years ago and finding exercise beneficial. And we'll get into some tips that you can provide, the audience a bit later on, and we'll talk a bit about the book
Mm.
as well. But let's talk about mental health. So you were diagnosed with bipolar disorder how long ago?
Um, uh, I was at age 23. I'm 52 now. So, I guess 30 years ago. Things are pretty different back then.
What did it do for you personally?
To be honest, I've always been a person who loved exercise. I probably got that from my mom. We were a very sporty family as well, with skiing, and I always played soccer, and we were an active family in general. And I used to come home after high school, and the younger people listening might not know who I'm talking about. Do you remember Jane Fonda?
Oh yes, Jane Fonda's work cup. Yeah, yeah.
Jane Fonda, I explain her to younger people like the original fitness influencer pre-Instagram.
She was.
Right? That she was. And she still makes videos on YouTube, by the way.
Wow.
Yes, she does. They're just more senior focused. So I would come home and pop in a VHS of that. I really loved exercise. And then that was one of the clues that when depression was coming, when that started to fall away, because that was my go-to, that was my fun, that was my joy. And when you lose that joy in depression, and then I lost a lot of ability to be able to exercise in my 20s. I was in and out of hospital. They don't really have the opportunity. They didn't then. I will say, unfortunately, in 23, I was hospitalized and they had a gym we could use. But back then, there was no way to exercise. I couldn't afford a gym membership. I was very lucky that a social worker got me a subsidized membership at the YMCA.
Oh,
And yeah, and that was kind of my lifesaver. I was able to go somewhere where for that hour, I wasn't a person with bipolar. I wasn't a person who coming from the hospital. I was just a normal person working out with everybody else and feeling great when I left. So that meant a lot, getting that membership. And then I really got into fitness as a career at Credit Valley Hospital, which is a hospital in Mississauga. I did a 4-week outpatient program. And at the end of it, we were encouraged to figure out our next step. Are we going to get a job, schooling, volunteer work? They wanted us to leave with something. And I remember I actually was crying when I was talking to the occupational therapist saying, there's nothing I can do. Like, I have no skills. And what do you like to do? She said. And I said, well, I like working out, but it's not a job. She said, of course it is. It had never occurred to me that I could be a personal trainer or that I could be a fitness instructor. So having one person say, yes, of course, this is a job, and helping me that I actually signed up. And then I did the personal training course. I got hired part-time at the Y. My confidence kept building with everything. And I did a fitness instructor and aquafit and yoga and Pilates. And I just kept going with it. And, I was now getting paid to do something that was increasing my own dopamine and, all those feel-good hormones. I was getting paid to do it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you can share how exercise benefited you directly regarding bipolar, because we know that there are depressive episodes and periods of euthymia, stability, and then there's hypomania and mania. Have you used exercise to help kind of regulate those moods?
Yeah, in all of them, I would say. In hypomania, I've only had mania twice, so otherwise hypomania, I have a lot of excess energy, right? And excess time because I'm not sleeping as much. So and they do say you have to be cautious in mania and hypomania with exercise because you can overdo it. Your goal is to try to slow things down, but you can definitely take it to a level that's beyond maybe your physical ability. Right. But yeah, I will pick up the intensity of my exercise. I might be a little bit more daring with things, maybe biking than I should be, but I'm trying to burn off that excess energy. I'm trying to exhaust myself, and it helps. Some people, and I could say I describe buzzing in my body in hypomania. I feel like I'm buzzing. So I'm trying to get rid of that buzzing by exercising a little longer than maybe I normally would or harder. Um, and in depression, it's much harder to get out for sure. That might be where I'm now on my mental health bike. I have a tendency I still force myself to do a lot of these things because I know I always feel better. It might sometimes require my husband basically pushing me out the door to do it. And I always come back feeling better. And while I might avoid people, I will try to secretly be around them, kind of just, I'm not going to make a date to exercise with somebody. I don't want that much, but I'm going to go somewhere where there's people. So there's less social isolation that I'm experiencing. And
Interacting,
you
yeah.
still, yeah, you still make a connection with people. I used an example in my webinar that, maybe you push yourself out the door and say, I'm just going to walk for 5 minutes. But then you have a neighbor who tends to be a bit chatty, and she stops to chat with you, and she has a dog, and the dog rolls over and wants a belly scratch. Well, how can you not feel good now, right? You're talking to somebody, you're scratching a little dog's belly, and you're outside in nature. So it can build from our 5 minute walk to something bigger and better.
You must be on medication for bipolar, and over the years, different types of medication. And I'm not quite sure of the answer to this. Maybe you might know. Is how does exercise maximize medication? Is that possible? Is that a thing?
Uh, I have not looked into the medication aspect of it, but I mean, if it's maximizing your states of euthymia, your states of feeling good by all of these, different things that we talked about, like if you're doing yoga and increasing your GABA and that's decreasing therefore your anxiety, well, of course, that's going to help that maybe somebody needs less anti-anxiety medication. If
Hmm.
you're running, and for people who run and they get that runner's high, then their serotonin and dopamine is increasing. It's been shown that if somebody can consistently move 3 times a week for 8 weeks, and that's the science, that their dopamine receptors become more open.
Oh, really?
So
Oh,
if you can stick it out for 8 weeks, and I think that's sometimes why people don't get to that point, because they're not getting that dopamine hit. Uh, there's another interesting thing, and the scientists don't know, like, is it the chicken or the egg that came first?
hmm.
But people who exercise regularly produce dopamine faster than non-regular exercisers. So is it some genetic thing that we produce that dopamine so we keep exercising because it feels good? Or is it consistent exercise has you produce it faster?
Right, right.
Um, or is it, the people who aren't exercising, is it genetically they're not primed to produce dopamine fast? Or is it because they're not exercising, they haven't gotten to that stage? Um, so as far as I know, the last time I read that study, they didn't know which came first.
That makes sense. Or it could be a combination of the both. Yeah.
Combination of the both. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, when it comes to medication and exercise, I think as well, there has to be some aspect of recognizing that some will have an effect. Like lithium, for example, affects your electrolytes. So I'm very cautious in hot weather of making sure I'm taking electrolytes. And everybody's medication might be different of how it affects, but it's maybe important to ask the pharmacist, like, hey,
Hmm.
if I'm doing this, how will it affect me?
I'm not sure if you have you heard of ketamine before?
I have heard of it in talking to you. I have heard of it because I know one person who does use it, I said, in between episodes, I guess, or as she needs it intermittently every few months, it seems now. But you could tell me a lot more about that.
It ties in what I was reading that added on to what I already know as a psychedelic therapist is that exercise provides, as you mentioned, an increase in dopamine, and there are things that are going on in the brain, improvements that are also seen in ketamine. So it kind of makes sense that exercise could very well benefit the extension, the amount of time that the ketamine lasts, because you may not know, but it only lasts for a short period of time, and then there's a need for boosters and repeated ketamine sessions. So what's interesting is I found out that low impact exercises. See if you agree to this. Low impact exercises may be optimal for ketamine patients who just completed a protocol. They just had the drug, because they are gentle exercises and provide benefits without overwhelming the body as it adjusts to the treatment's effect. And in this article, they were suggesting things like stretching, walking, yin yoga. I'm not sure what that is,
I
and
can let you
gardening.
know. Yeah. Hmm.
So it looks like low impact exercises would be beneficial shortly afterwards. Would you agree that those types of exercises are low impact?
I think that definitely they are onto something because they it's said that the best type of exercise for mental health is actually moderate paced. So you don't need to go
Oh,
all out or for long term. It's just kind of walking. So moderate paced is, I mean, you want somebody getting beyond a casual stroll, I guess, to build those benefits. But anything's better than nothing. But so those all sound like moderate types of exercise. Yeah. Your answer to yin yoga is it's a slow pace of yoga where the poses
oh
are
yeah.
held for about 3 to 5 minutes. So physically, it's great because you get really deep into the muscle and the fascia. And mentally, like it's either really difficult if your mind is going, but to sit there in one pose for 3 to 5 minutes. Um, so I feel like yin yoga does take a special mind state, and I feel like you have
Hmm.
to be in a good mind state. Whereas a gentle flow, at least if your mind is spinning, you have a bit more. But that's yin yoga is your answer. Very slow.
Thanks for that. I have never even heard of that before. So you're familiar with the benefits of exercise when it comes to the brain. Can you share what you know so far, or perhaps that you gathered for this discussion regarding uh, neurons, regarding the plasticity of the brain, and that exercise
Yeah.
actually creates growth?
So what
Hmm.
neuroplasticity is it means our brain can constantly keep learning and constantly keep growing. And this applies a lot in like if somebody's doing therapy and I don't know, you're practicing a CBT exercise where you're told to I don't know, rethink something in this state. Well, the first 5 times it might seem like, I was about to swear, I don't know for a lot, where like bull, blah, blah. I don't know. Like, the first few times you're going, this doesn't work. But maybe by the 20th time, that neuroplasticity has started to change in your brain. And exercise does that as well. Another thing that it does is it increases BDNF.
Yes,
And
I
it
was reading that
stands.
too. Yeah, share
Yeah.
share share with what
br-
that is.
Okay, I'm going to try to say brain derived neurotropic factor. It could be
Yeah, that's
brain
what I read too. Yeah,
neurotropic factor,
yeah.
which we could think of it like fertilizer for the brain.
Right.
And this is one where aerobic exercise specifically has been shown to increase the BDNF, especially in the hippocampus of the brain. So it's really neat when we start to see the signs that it's not just, oh, exercise makes you feel good. There's actual things coming from it as well in the brain. There's also been shown with depression and bipolar disorder that there's chronic inflammation throughout the body, including
Yeah.
the brain, and that exercise can actually decrease that inflammation. We've talked about serotonin and it aerobic exercise. Again, so a lot of it comes back to this aerobic, but I would like to talk about some different types as well in a bit.
Hmm.
But aerobic exercise increases the serotonin neurons firing so that you know, I like to think of it in the brain, they're getting together more. They're hanging out now. They're getting together more.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm a big believer this isn't the brain, but of the social connection of exercise. Even as I said, when I wasn't feeling great, I'm just staying on the outskirts, but I'm still hearing people, seeing people, right? It's our stress hormones as well, like our cortisol. We're not meant to have high cortisol throughout the day. It's supposed to be high in the morning, decrease throughout the day so that by the time you go to bed, it's low and you can hopefully get to sleep. But a lot of us are in that fight and flight all throughout the day. So we want to regulate the cortisol, and exercise does that as well. So it's really a underutilized tool in mood disorders.
Where I see great benefit is that exactly what you're talking about. BDNF came up in the articles I was reading regarding ketamine. Is that ketamine also promotes that fertilizer for the brain, and not only helps new neural connections to be formed, it also helps with neural growth or neurogenesis, and that's exactly what I was reading happens with exercise. So it kind of makes sense that if we look at exercise as part of the regimen, part of what we do, and provide our clients, is that there's a great need, not just for mental health, but after a ketamine session, possibly during the integration process, introducing and helping the client understand the benefits of exercise, that it actually is duplicating what ketamine does, and I would assume would be able to extend the benefit too. So this is interesting, with your help in understanding exercise and the neuroscience behind it, reading up on the neuroscience of ketamine, we're talking about very similar things. So this is really, really good news.
So imagine the power of them together.
Ketamine significantly enhances synaptic plasticity. That's what, I guess, the fancy word for exactly what we're talking about. And it's the ability to form and strengthen connections between neurons, and it's called synaptogenesis. Promotes the formation of new dendrites, which are crucial for communication between neurons, and it's a rewiring of the brain. It makes sense that exercise should be part of that. Exercise also has a great benefit for the prefrontal cortex too. It improves our executive functionings, like planning, decision making, and emotional regulation. So there's a lot of similarity in this. This is really cool.
And one thing that I was talking about was resilience as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
that exercise has been, and I mean, you need resilience, especially in something like bipolar where it's lifelong and it's constant. And you need to have that resilience to know that you can get through this episode and then, okay, I'll be fine. And then I've got another one. I know I can get through it. It's just a matter of time. And I was telling you a story about, I have every once in a while, I need to do something that gives me confidence, that tells me I can do something, that tells me I'm resilient and I yes, I can do it because I lose a lot of confidence. And with bipolar, you start things, you don't finish them, and then you feel like you've got these unfinished projects that you failed at. So I need to sometimes know I succeed at something. And for me, it will often be a fitness goal. And so my husband and I did, it was a race, but we weren't trying to get any time out of it. Leaving from Vancouver in British Columbia, which is on the ocean, and then cycling up to the top of Whistler, which is a mountain. Well, it was 125 kilometers and mostly uphill. It's called the Sea to Sky Highway, and it is a beautiful highway because you've got the sea on one side, the mountains on the other, but it's 125 kilometers uphill. And I did it. It took 6.5 hours, but I did it. I was ready to quit a couple of times, but when I got to the top, I felt so good about myself. And this was 4 years ago, and I still sometimes think of that. And it reminds me, I did that. I can do other things. I have resilience. So sometimes that's important too. And exercise, whether it's, I don't know, you're playing basketball and you came back from, I don't know, basketball has high scores, doesn't it? So let's say it was 75-40, that's kind of thing, and your team came back. That's confidence. You know you can do that again. Or you're learning dance moves. And that takes a lot of work of the brain to learn dance moves. And then you put it all together and you have it. You know you can do it. And I think that's an important part of it.
A very important part. I never thought of that myself, but resilience from activities, not necessarily, well, I finished, a 2-hour workout in the gym. You can find resilience in all different ways, and not necessarily looking at exercise, which I think a lot of people do, is, okay, I need exercise, so I keep my weight down. But resilience and other benefits kind of outweigh that, I think.
Yeah, they say strength training increases confidence, and it makes so much sense because if you go, oh yeah, I'll be able to lift this box, or something that drives me nuts, I can't open a jar. Like, and I hate it. And then one of my kids comes and goes, oh, isn't that hard? But if you know you can open a jar, you can lift a box, you can, I don't know, whatever work it might be you need to do around your yard because you've been strength training, that gives you the confidence, right? But some days it might be your confidence from or your resilience comes from you walked around the block and that was really hard that day and you still did it. Or you were watching commercials on TV and you stretched for that 5 minutes. Some days that's good.
Let's talk about tips for the audience. Let's say I'm someone that is in depression. I've been staying in bed for days and days. The doctor says I need to get out and do some exercise, but I do not have the energy or motivation. What would you say to someone like that? That something that would help them?
Yeah, that because that's super hard because showering can be hard, right? So now
Right.
and now you're being expected to go and exercise. I would say keep it really simple. As
Mm-hmm.
walking around the block, we all have shoes. We all have somewhere outside we can walk, right? It doesn't have to be anything great, but we all have somewhere outside we can walk. The weather's bad. Can you get to the mall and walk inside in the mall? And there's going to be some social interaction there as well, too. So if it's a really hard day, to keep it simple, if you have somebody in your life who can push you, either like just say get out there, or what's wonderful is if you have a friend who will do it with you. That's great. Videos, there's a lot of like you can type in on YouTube gentle, I wouldn't surprise gentle fitness videos, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's a depression exercise video. I have never looked, but it would not surprise me.
I imagine there.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I had somebody tell me they go to sleep in their exercise clothes so that when they wake up in the morning, they're dressed for it, like almost
Wow.
no excuse.
I'll try that.
Uh, So that's one thing if you're a morning exerciser. Other people have told me they pay for something. It could be a Peloton membership you do at home. It could be you sign up for a yoga class that you've prepaid. So for me, if I pay for something, I'm going to do it. Generally, but there's been times when I've not because I couldn't get myself there. Uh, I imagine it will be much harder for the people who haven't gotten to where we talked about that 8 week stretch where you actually
Mm.
start permanently increasing the dopamine. It's
Yeah.
going to be a
I
lot
imagine a lot
harder
of
for
people
those
don't
people.
don't get to that point. Yeah, I imagine a lot of people don't
Yeah.
get to that point of 8 weeks to see that benefit.
Yes, I know the Canadian Mental Health Association near me, CMHA, they have, and they're everywhere throughout Canada. They have a center called Recovery West with different programs, and they actually have a yoga once a week. It's free, it's drop-in. So for any of the clients of CMHA, and I'm considered a client because I used to attend their bipolar group. It was unfortunately canceled, but I still try to go to a couple online groups a month just to maintain that I'm still a client. So if ever I need quick access, I have it. So people can look up in their region and they might have something free. And, then you're doing it with people who understand.
Earlier on, we're talking about movement, right? Just being active, moving your body. And I imagine that whole idea kind of helped you come to your program, Move Your Mood. So explain, is this a webinar or workshop, or tell us a bit about what that is?
No, it's just a webinar. It's just a topic that, as I've, been looking to do more speaking on this, on mental health, on bipolar, on my book, it just seemed to blend very well. And I have quite a passion around movement and exercise and experience with it. So at the moment, no, it's just the webinar that I did and this, and then I have a live talk coming up. But it's an interesting idea. Maybe there needs to be something that people tune into once a week and do some exercise to move their mood. I haven't thought it through that far, but
It might be a germ of an idea for the future.
maybe. Mhm.
People that are watching this, you can probably see a book on the right on the desk behind Sandra, A Sparkling Tornado. This is the book that I read and we talked about in this other podcast. Tell us more about it, but I'd love you to explain the second title of it. So, A Sparkling Tornado, and what is the other title of the book?
Okay, so it's A Sparkling Tornado, a memoir of living and thriving-ish with bipolar disorder. And I use the term thriving-ish because as I was starting to write, it's a memoir of my life, of my 30 years of living with bipolar, but each chapter finishes with one of the tools I use, a CBT or a DBT. I call them reflections and resources. And I was writing this and having all kinds of doubts and self-doubt. I don't consider myself to be, well, you're never cured with bipolar, but I feel like I'm just thriving-ish. I can't work full time. I figured out part-time work is very well suited to me. I can manage that and stay quite stable. So I think I'm thriving-ish. I'm not out there running a high-powered company. I'm not saying things are always great for me. I'm not saying my mood is always stable. I was out of the hospital for many years, and then in 2023 ended back up in the hospital, and that was really disappointing to me. But then that's what triggered me to start writing the book after that. And it's been quite well received. I've opened up a lot of conversations with people. Um, I like the term thriving-ish. And when I am feeling I'm not doing great and I'm getting a bit of the imposter syndrome, I say, no, I never claimed to be perfect. I can't forget that ish.
Mm-hmm. Imposter syndrome. That's an interesting thing. How does that manifest for you? And I'll share how it manifests for me.
Yeah, well, because I think anytime you are presenting on mental health as somebody who has it, people think you're an expert. And I'm only an expert in my own experience. I'm only an expert in what I have researched. These CBT and DBT tools I use in the book, those are the ones that I use personally for me. They might not be the right one for somebody else. That's my lived experience. Um, and then maybe you have people ask you questions that you're not qualified to answer. And I had a friend sit down with me, and she's actually a medical doctor, and she came to a talk I did, and a couple of questions came up. And she called me the next day, and she's like, "Do you want to come over for a drink and debrief?" And she said, "You need to come up with some answers for when these questions come up, because they will. And you need to have a response that's within your scope." And we actually wrote down some things.
I relate to the thing about being an expert. No one is an expert, and with mental health, very much so. But sometimes I kind of feel the pressure that I have to come up with the answers for my clients, and sometimes I may not have the answer, but I work with them for both of us to get there to find that. But just that at times feeling like this imposter syndrome that they're going to find out that I'm not an expert, which is very odd.
Yeah, that's exactly it, actually. That
Yeah.
yes, I am not. To me, it's like, yeah, I'm writing a book and saying, oh, these exercises will help. And in one part of the book, I actually write about how when I was really unwell in my 20s and in and out of hospital, my mom would bring me these workbooks, and my mom has this positivity that I can't handle when I'm not there, and I never filled out the workbooks. I wasn't in the place then to be able, or I wasn't even willing, but to have the cognitive ability to do these workbooks. So, I say in it, I recognize I'm preaching exactly what my mom was. These exercises will help. Well, sometimes we're not ready for them. Sometimes maybe we come back to it another time. Sometimes maybe it's the exact one we need. I love thought diaries, working through things with that. But those can take a while. They can take an hour.
Before we wrap up, are there any, like I said, the resources? You can send me a list, and I'll put them in the show notes. But offhand, any other resources other than CMHA that would be helpful for someone watching the show, thinking about how they can be motivated to move?
One thing I think I will send to you as well in the webinar that I did a couple weeks ago, halfway through, I pulled up a 5-minute desk exercise video from YouTube because on webinars, you don't know if they're paying attention too much, right? I tried to lure them into the chat all the time, but it was 5 minutes and it was gentle, done at your desk. So it seems to me it would be something that anybody has the ability to do, really, and it's 5 minutes. So I would love to actually send that link. It seemed like a good one, and we all can manage 5 minutes. And even if it's not just because you're feeling low, maybe it's just somebody who's watching this who sits at a desk all day and can take that 5 minutes to stand up and wake up and feel a bit better, or step away from a project that's stressing them out for 5 minutes.
And I think that idea of chunking it down to 5 minutes kind of speaks to all of us nowadays regarding the internet, because everything is short. So, there's 5 minute, or sometimes most of the time less than 5 minutes in a YouTube video. So just, putting on yourself that, can I take 5 minutes out of my day and do this? So yeah, actually I did see that video when I was watching your webinar. I was quite impressed with that. So yes, please send it along.
Okay.
And I'll note it in the show notes. So wrapping up, I would like to talk about a quote that I asked you to send me. I asked you to send me a quote that is meaningful for you as the ending of the show. And so this quote is from Haruki Murakami. And here's the quote. Exerting yourself to the fullest within your individual limits, that's the essence of running and a metaphor for life. And for me as well, I just run. I run in a void. Not avoid, a void. Or maybe I should put it the other way. I run in order to acquire a void. What does that mean for you?
I like that quote. I am not a runner. In fact, I just don't ask me to run. I don't want to use the word hate because that's negative, but it's just not for me, running, let's say. But everything else he says relates to me. When he says, I run to fill a void, I think sometimes that's what I'm doing. I'm filling it. Whereas what is the quote? I have it written here, because there's the two voids, or sometimes to create a void. So sometimes you're wanting to fill yourself up, maybe with happiness, maybe with joy, social connection, because you have that as a void. Other times you need to create a void and you have too much going on in your head and you need to void it. You need to get it out, and it can go both ways. So that's what I liked about it, that exercise, movement does different things for me at different times.
We had an interesting discussion today, looking at on your end what you know about exercise and how it impacts the brain, and then with my training, but also a little bit of research on my end, seeing the correlation, seeing how exercise can benefit someone that has gone through ketamine sessions. A wonderful discussion. Really appreciate you coming by and discussing this with us.
Thank you so much, Greg. I enjoyed it as well. I love to talk about exercise, and I'm happy to help with spreading the word about mental health and especially bipolar.